You ever been stuck in an elevator and thought it was going to plummet to the ground? What about being stuck in line at McDonald's and then they get your food order wrong? Well, Epictetus, he's going to talk to us about all that stuff tonight. Now, what about getting kidnapped? Ever had to fear for your life and thought that, oh shit, I'm not going to make it out of this? I'm going to give you some advice tonight. Hopefully this will help you get out of that situation should you ever find yourself in one. Hopefully not, though. And then finally, gentlemen, what are you doing to scare the ladies off when you first meet them? What are the most common things guys are doing that they shouldn't be? What's making you appear hostile when to you it could be something very simple? Well, stay right here for Fire Tea and Philosophy. And I'm your host, Anthony Farina, former infantryman, philosopher, and writer. Let's start off with a really good story. Betty Lou Oliver. Now, Betty Lou Oliver, she became famous around the 40s or so. What happened was she was working in the Empire State Building, and a B-52 bomber, I believe it was, had crashed into the building. And when she had to evacuate, she jumped into an elevator, or whatever version of the elevator it was at that time. So Betty Lou, she was freaked out. She jumps into this elevator, and as it's going down, it begins to plummet 72 or 73 stories, I believe it is. And she comes out of it alive miraculously. So what happened? What did she do? Well, she really didn't do anything, because the thing that saved her, physics, was the cable in the elevator came down before it, and it cushioned the fall. So going over this, thinking, well, what if you do find yourself in this situation and you're not lucky enough to have the cable land before the elevator? What do you need to do? Well, there are a few things that you don't do. Everything else you just kind of pray about. One is you don't attempt to try and jump before the elevator hits the ground. You can't see the ground anyway. But what that would do, if you did it, let's say you successfully jumped right before the elevator hit the ground and you avoided that impact, right? Well, what's going to happen is you're going to fly up to the ceiling and you're going to break every bone in your body and you're going to die. Okay, so we don't want to do that one. Let's cross that off our list. Next one. Stand up against the wall, straight as you can be, stiff as a board, light as a feather, and see if you can withstand the impact. No, because what's going to happen is gravity is going to happen to you on a very big level. Your body weight is going to come down. It's going to crush your legs. Okay, so you're probably going to bleed out from some kind of, I don't know, maybe your femoral artery severed. So we don't want to do that one. We don't want to jump. We don't want to stand straight up. So what do we do? Well, the only thing to do that's highly recommended is to lay flat on the ground. And we got some guests showing up tonight. Guys, thank you for being here. And Jamie is from in Tennessee. How you doing, Jamie, and everyone else here? Thank you for tuning into the show. We got some great material. Right now we are on what to do if you're in an elevator that's falling straight to the ground. Basically, you want to put your, go all flat out in the ground, and you want to let the impact be absorbed throughout your whole body. Now, the problem with this, the main problem isn't so much the smack at the end, the flat impact. It is when the elevator hits the ground, finally, the whole thing's going to collapse. So anything up above can come down. You can decapitation, everything else. So it comes down to praying. So in the end, what have we learned from this? Take the stairs, right? Take the stairs. So there's some stupid joke out there about the stairs and shit. It's like, I don't trust stairs because they're always up to something. Right. So I'm going to take, I don't trust elevators, so I'm going to take steps to avoid them. That's it, baby. Tell that to your kids, they'll get it. So, Jamie replies with, she's doing great. And that's right. You like the joke. Good. I'm seeing some responses about that joke. It's a good joke. There's more out there. I created one along that lines now that we're on the elevator stairs. Is I don't like ropes because they're kind of twisted. Yeah? I'm not going to open up a comedian show. I swear to God. I should know tonight. It's something that can be applied very strongly to today. Out of all philosophy that I know, I think this philosopher is the one that we should pay attention to. my cousin Josh. How you doing? Good to see you on here. So first with kidnapping though, right? Let's talk about a few things. You know, there's basically America has a all-time high of kidnapping, but most of the kidnappings that happen are dealing with the parent and the child. So we can kind of scratch that off the list as a really dangerous country for kidnapping. Now, where you're going to find most of your kidnappings, they're going to be either financially or politically motivated. You're going to see them in South America, Latin America. You're going to see them over in war zones, Afghanistan, places like that. So it's realizing first, when you've been kidnapped, why you've been kidnapped. So if it's just around, you know, good old America, if you come from wealth, you've probably been kidnapped. So there's going to be a ransom, which tells you right away they need you alive or else there's no money. There was no point in the kidnapping whatsoever. So the second thing is, if you are in a war-torn country, it's going to be politically motivated and you're going to be used as a barter in some way. You're going to be exchanged for another prisoner. You can expect that. What does that little bit of information give you in that kidnapping situation? It buys you time. It tells you not to freak out. It tells you to do the following. Well, first, the very first rule is, you know, I'm going to go over to what you should prepare to do. And by the way, most kidnappings happen within 10 miles of the home here in America, by the way. Not so sure about other countries and things like that. But 10 miles away from the home is where most kidnappings happen. And the first thing you should do if you ever get caught by somebody, you know, they're trying to drag you to a van or drag you away, is you raise the roof. You make all kinds of noise. You try and gather as much attention to you as possible. And this is important. You know, you could yell, help. Maybe some people will come. Some places they teach you yell fire. I mean, whatever it is, you need to kick and scream. You need to break things. You know, if you're running past shops and you're in an urban area, then I would say break a window. It's going to sound an alarm. Usually when you can distract the kidnapper or the perpetrator from his main mission by breaking a window which sounds an alarm, it's alerting the police. That can be enough to detract them from kidnapping you. So the most dangerous time when you're kidnapped, this goes for all kidnappings, is in the first 30 minutes to 1 hour time frame. That's the most dangerous time. That's the window where you have to get away. So you need to be planning your escape route at that time and go from there. So beyond fighting back, let's say, you know, they caught you, they ran up to you, and now they're dragging you to the vehicle. You start kicking back and you manage to get away. You're probably not going to be able to think about this much, but the ideal thing to do is wherever the direction of the vehicle is facing that the perpetrator came from, you need to run in the opposite direction. Okay, so what does that happen? One, it puts space between you and them, but two, it also buys you a little more time because that criminal has to get in the vehicle and they have to turn it around. It takes them more time to find a different route. That gives you an opportunity for escape. So try that. Now, so what if you're caught? Well, where's the main area that people go when they are kidnapped? In a vehicle, in the trunk. Well, there is good news. If you go into the trunk of a vehicle, inside, I think it's anything between 07 or 08 models of cars, they had to as mandatory that manufacturers had to put a switch in there to open the trunk from the inside. So newer models, they've got a glow in the dark switch. Models that are closer to that 7-8 time frame, you have to actually dig in there, but it is by the latch, the trunk latch. Now, let's say you're in an older vehicle and you don't have that ability to get to that, you know, that doesn't exist. Well, then what you want to do is there's a false floor in nearly every vehicle, every car, and in it is a spare tire and the jack. Now, hopefully you have enough time to do this, but again, it's just something else for your toolbox if you get in this situation. You need to take the jack out, put it on a flat part in the trunk, and then start cranking the jack up. That'll push the trunk up. Now, what do you do if you're in the middle of traffic? You jump out. Okay, you risk your chance getting hit by a car. I'm sorry, you do, or stay in with the attackers. You can also try and search for the brake light, break open the brake light. Maybe that can cause a vehicle to get pulled over, but it just all depends. Remember, these are just things you can do. It's not going to guarantee you any more safety, but at least you have a little bit of knowledge. So when I'm riding, you know, unless you're highly trained, these are some things that, you know, you're not going to really become accustomed to naturally in a stressful situation. So what are some things that you can do while you're in the vehicle of this kidnapper's car? And you need to try and figure out where you're going, because that's a good thing to start with. If anything else, you're bound, you're gagged, all this other stuff. Does anybody know? I mean, anybody watching right now, military training, any type of specialty, police force training, what are some things you can do? I mean, I'll list a couple, but I always like to hear more on this, because I always have this fondness to study what happens when you get captured against your will. One of the things I know is you need to pay attention to when your weight shifts, when you start rolling back and forth. That means you're turning in some direction. So try and pay attention to, okay, I shifted this way, that means the car is going that way. And then how many seconds it takes to turn. Because if you're in your familiar area, you can start mapping out these turns in your own mind to give you an idea of where you're at. That's going to come in later when you start to plan your escape route. You know, one of the other things you can do in this event is by preparing ahead of time, is to think of a way to get a razor blade and a handcuff key. Those are the two most common items in a survival kit for military when they're in a high E&E escape and evasion area. And they'll either put them in the belt somewhere, the shoe, just somewhere noticeable. The razor blade you wrap in duct tape and you dog ear it so you have it, and you can put it in your shoe. It's not going to hurt you. You could even go as far as having some kind of second skin or fake skin if you're operating in that area. Put the handcuff key or razor blade under it, whatever. You just got to think of these things. I've seen belts where they're like the spy belts, and the spy has he's got all kinds of things, like he's got a safety pin in his belt buckle. He takes it out and helps him get out of handcuffs. So these are some really interesting things that you can just find on the internet, you know, if you think you're being followed. So before and our last thing before we go into when you're captured, the last thing you can do is play Hansel and Gretel. What does that mean? Well, while you're being drugged or being transported, if you can get a hole open in that brake area and the brake light and get access to the outside world somehow, start leaving buttons or pieces of clothing or something like that. It's a little trail of you going in that direction. Hopefully authorities can pick up. Now, doing all these things together, it can equip you well enough to start thinking in the right mindset. So what else, what do you do when all else fails and you're caught? Anybody watching, you guys ever been kidnapped before? What was it like? What did you do? What did you do to survive it? Ever been taken against your will? Scary thing. It's the thing because it's scary because it's a big thing of the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen. First, they tell you is, you know, you're going to be, when you're kidnapped, you're going to be in this room and you're probably going to be there for a long time until your release is negotiated, of course, or you're found and rescued, hopefully is the ultimate scenario. But with that, you need to get in the mindset, okay, I'm going to be here long term, but I need to get as much information out of this kidnapper as I can. Why? There's psychology behind this. And I love psychologists. Psychologists and philosophers go hand in hand. We take a lot of the same classes together. So the reason why is because if kidnapper A has prisoner A, and over time, prisoner A knows kidnapper A's favorite color, and he knows what his favorite food is and his favorite memory, that psychologically makes it harder for the kidnapper to kill the prisoner. And I don't know what I'm pointing to, these imaginary people out here. But anyway, so it's a good trick. You want to develop that, but you have to be careful, because when you get to know the captor, as you were, it is possible you can develop Stockholm syndrome and later assist them in escaping, and you just don't want that. So what do? Well, I've come up with my own personal method. I've never heard this before, but what I say you do is you give them a C name. So you start calling them Chuck or Charlie or whatever you want, Cinnamon, I don't know. Why? Because it reminds you that it stands for criminal or, you know, something like that. They are they're the person that's taking you, or captor. Yeah, criminal or captor. So always in the back of your mind, you avoid Stockholm syndrome in some way by remembering this person's name starts with the C for that very reason when you're doing all this talk. Now, let's say you're in there for the long haul. You're kidnapped, you're chained to a wall, you got a bed, they give you food, whatever. You need to develop ways to adjust to time. In seclusion, it's very hard to adjust to time. You don't have your natural methods you're used to. The sun, I mean, you may have the sun, things like that. But what you need to do is you need to figure out a way to start counting the days. Either if it's an enclosed room with no windows, maybe start listening to the foot traffic going on upstairs. When are they most active? When are they least active? And things like that are going to give you an indication about how long it is between day and night. You've got nothing but time to really mess with down there. Create games, make an imaginary friend. You have to keep your sanity when you're being held captive. That's key. Why? Because it's all about survival at this point. One of the things we teach on this show every week is survival in some shape or form. And with that, your mentality is your key to survival in any situation. The will to survive is the #1 component in surviving anywhere through anything. So let's go back to the scenario. You're captive, and you start developing patterns where you can tell the day and things are going on, and all of a sudden the police show up. What do? You don't assist. #1, you do not assist the police or whoever it is. If it's military rescuing you, don't assist. When they come in the door, you get as low to the ground as possible. Put your hands over the back of your head, or however you can do it if you're not bound. This is important because protocol will dictate for nearly any unit that goes in to rescue a hostage that everybody is suspect until they're cleared. So the captors may have a plan where they're going to make somebody look like the prisoner, they're going to make you look like the perpetrator, all these other things. It could be anything. So they just assume everybody in the house is a criminal. So you need to lay down, you need to be in a non-threatening position, which will keep you alive essentially and not get shot. So hopefully that information on kidnapping is at least sparked your interest on what to do. Now we're getting to the last part of that is how, what good does this do if I can't tell? What are the signs and symptoms? This is what I want to start incorporating into my survival, is how to tell ahead of time if you're going to get, if you're going to be in that survival situation. And signs and symptoms. I can write a book on this shit. So good friend Jeremy Barrera says, what's up, brother? Hey, Jeremy, how you doing? I hope everything is good back home. And to the rest of the viewers here tonight, I hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. Got the fire. I got the raspberry tea. Good stuff. And you, my good people, this is good to have you on here. So the signs and symptoms of that particular survival situation is going to happen every week. So what are the signs and symptoms you're going to be kidnapped or taken? Well, there's a few. And then what do you do about it? So first of all, do you notice somebody, a vehicle, a person, somebody out of the ordinary that's not native to your environment or indigenous to your environment that appears suddenly out of nowhere? And then they're in odd places that you are. Now, I think that the key is about a week to 10 days. If you start noticing them if I notice some shit like that for more than 2 or 3 days, I'm reporting it. I go to the grocery store every Wednesday, right? Or I go to school every Monday, or I go to work on these days. And every time I go, this person, he always seems to be right there. Maybe he's just at the gas station having coffee. People don't have to be following you on the road to kidnap you. They can be just finding out where you're going to be at what time. That's all they need to know. Where you are at what time. If they know for sure you're at that location, they can pick you up. They can execute their plan. So, what do? If you notice it, you report it. Okay? Next thing, you start varying your route wherever you go. The other thing, you remain confident in what you're doing. You don't start looking over your shoulder. It could key them off. You just act like you're going about your day, and you start recording it. Information, and you give that to the cops or whoever the authorities are going to be. Especially in the military, they got all kinds of things, or private contractors, whatever it may be. So those are the things you can do, and that's how you know the warning sign is is somebody appearing out of nowhere, or they're in these random places. It's not just coincidence anymore. You should have some kind of, hopefully, your internal alert system is going to go off and tell you this isn't right. This guy should not be here. If it's, you know, kidnappings, they're rarely just out of the blue. You know, you're a target. You become a target way before it's even happened. So that's why they say, you know, start varying your routes. Take longer to go home than normal. And then if they're still following you and you notice it, you definitely call the cops, because you got a real good strong case at that point. Sadly to say though, when I was up in Alaska, I would hear about that stuff happening a lot. And being that there weren't, you know, police are spread out all over there, they could, you know, they did what they could, but it was, Alaska is just a crazy place, man. It's a Wild West. So yeah. So don't get kidnapped in the end. Vary your route and watch your back. Oh yeah. Last thing. So if you're, one of my friends just popped up on here to make me thought of a very good teaching point. Thanks, Olivia. Is if an attacker overpowers you, one good method to do is get your body balled up and as low to the ground as possible. That makes them more difficult. If you're balled up and you're real stiff and tight, that makes the captor more difficult to carry you, versus you're trying to punch and kick and scream, and he goes in and he just picks you up over your shoulder and walks you to the van. Okay, so remember that stuff. That's good things you got to remember. So on to tonight, our keynote philosopher, man I find very interesting for a number of reasons, is Epictetus. Now, what is Epictetus? Who is he, and when did he live? Well, he lived in the time of Emperor Nero. He was born in 50 AD. He died in 135 AD. So he was a slave, and this is why I think it's important to understand from him about being a philosopher, because back then slaves weren't allowed anything. They did work and then they died. So it's important we take note about the way he sees pain. And a couple new people coming on. Hey, what's up, buddy? And Olivia says she doesn't know, but thank you that you know now. Knowing's half the battle, G.I. Joe. Stay in the ball. Just get kicked. Stay down. Stay down. Play dead. Play dead. Yeah, that's it. When you're getting kidnapped, play dead. Anyway, back to Epictetus. What was he big for? He was a Stoic philosopher. So what's Stoicism? Stoicism is living and enduring pain without showing feeling or emotion. And his approach is beautiful. I think it's something we really need to take into account today. So it starts off his main work. I always screw this up. The Endycurion or something like that. So the Endycurion is like this compilation of his works on Stoicism and all these things. So he said, first thing we're going to start off, one of his teachings is, do not label things good or bad, because they affect your judgment throughout the day and well into the night, maybe even the next day. So what is he saying by that? Well, he's saying that there are certain things you can control in your life. You can control your thoughts. You can control your opinions. You can control the desire and the drive you have. And you can control your actions. You have absolute control over all these things. No one else and nothing else in the world has control over those but you. But now other things, if I say, oh, the day is crappy because it's cold, is the day really crappy? And half you on here are going to be like, yeah. Other half like me are going to be like, no, because I love the damn cold weather. But the point is, with Stoicism, he's saying there is beauty in the pain. All right, so follow me on this for a minute. So he says, by doing this, by taking this mindset of understanding what it is you can absolutely control, and then everything else you don't give value or power to. Because when we give people who have negative opinions, like say someone's talking smack about you or whatever, when we give those people like their opinion meaning and it bothers us, it only bothers us because we gave them that power. And we gave them that power because we gave them some type of importance in our life. And he's saying, this is not important. It should not even concern you. The weather should not even concern you. Natural disasters, plagues. For me, the political environment, I give a shit about it. So, I mean, yes, there's things that have to happen, but I can't change it. I'm not in absolute control of the political environment. Nobody really is. So, even though we have people in higher seats of power, yes, but there's no one person who controls all the politics everywhere. It makes all is the supreme law of the land. So, Epictetus goes on to say, all right, optimize what you can control and release everything else. But why? How do you do that? Well, it doesn't just happen overnight, and that's why stoicism is a practice. It's an endurance, it's a race, and it's something that you have to build up to. Now, interestingly enough, another thing why he was such a keynote philosopher in my mind, someone that stands out, is because stoicism, it was something that's only studied by the world powers, and still today, you'll find a lot of the elites and big business owners, Fortune 500 company people, whatever, Fortune 100s, they all study stoicism. Why? Because they learn to invest their energy in what they have absolute control over. Everything else, they put in order as they please. It's not of great importance to them. And that was the key. So they would have thought a slave back then, if he would have gained this knowledge and power, he could overthrow Emperor Nero. And if you guys know anything about Emperor Nero wasn't a good guy. Just Google half the shit he did. So Nero was bad. Nero ruled with the iron fist. So he says, we have power over our decisions. We have power over our opinions. They can change daily. We have power over our actions, but we don't have power over all the matters of the earth, how many waves are going to happen in a day, and what someone else is thinking. Look at Facebook. Look at the medium we're talking to each other on right now. It is a place of thought. Who thinks what and how, and look how many moods it affects. It affects moods on such a drastic level, some people even go off and commit suicide. But hey, we're looking into each other's minds at that point. Go back to Epictetus, and he says, it doesn't matter. He's not saying that to don't, blow people off and be rude about it. He's saying once you give them power, you take away power from the more important things in your life. And that's your own opinions and your own beliefs. Why? Because this leads to his next part. Epictetus would go on to say that keep at it, keep doing what you're doing. Like if you love something and you have desire to do it, keep doing it no matter what. People may laugh at you. And he specifically brought up being a philosopher and being laughed at in his work. And I don't know, this is the Good Book of Life. I think the English translation is, I can't pronounce that shit to save my life. Anyway, so, hey, what's up, Carl, my video editor, buddy? Good to see you guys on here. And everyone else, good to see you on here too. I hope you're enjoying tonight's show. So, back to that, he says, now, what's going to happen? You keep doing what you love and what you desire most in life, right? Because here's what's going to happen. In the beginning, people may laugh at you and may scorn you for what you're doing because they don't see it. But as you live your life and they see your actions are a fruit of what you are pursuing, they just may admire you. However, on a different note, if you are pursuing something and someone begins to laugh at you about it and you stop pursuing it, you will get in the habit of letting other opinions from people dictate how you should live, and you become a prisoner yourself. Why? Because instead of giving your own opinions value, you now value what everyone else says about you more than anything. And so in the end, you stop doing what you're doing, and you're also getting laughed at. So keep doing what you're doing. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, well, strike that to a degree. We're talking moral things. Don't go do all the bad shit. You get the point. So, if it's something good and moral and it's going to make you happy and it's of good nature and good habit, do it. That's what I say. I tell people, do it, When I first went in the Marines, loved my mom to death, but she was like, why not the Army? I want to be a Marine. Then I joined the Army. Tell you what, a real quick story here. This is a good example of it. So in the Marines, you do a 4-year contract. Army, it can be 3 or whatever, I think 4. Air Force, I think they give them like a month and then they can go home and come back, do it a year later. Joking, boys, love you. So here's what happened. So in the last 6 months of the Marine Corps, I started getting a lot of shit from commanders, from my friends, everybody, like, why are you going to the Marines? Oh, or why are you going to the Army? You're such a wuss, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah. So that 6 months was kind of hell. It was like a mental beating, right? So then the first 6 months in the Army, some of you guys are watching, I got shit for being a Marine. Oh yeah, all the time. Every day I walked into work, hey, this is Farina, the Marine. These guys are laughing at like everything. They were nitpicking my uniform. Oh, is that how they do it in the Marines? Hey, fucking hey, shit. So, but it wasn't until we then deployed later to Iraq that all that went away. But the point is, I stayed the course. I knew I wanted to go into the Army, pursue, different avenues, and I stayed with the Marines. And people now, especially at college, are like, wow, you were in the military and now you're pursuing philosophy. Why? Well, it's still a statement of I'm doing what I love. And even though I value your opinion as a person or a friend, when it comes down to my decision of going my life going in a direction of my desire, I stay with that. And I urge you, if you're not doing that, stay with that as well. Stay true to yourself. That's the biggest calling you should have in life. Because at the end, you do not want to have regret. You don't want to be sitting alone in your home or some old folks' home or something, some other place. And instead of looking back on your life and saying, I enjoyed that and I fulfilled what I needed to, or at least I attempted it. Oh, fire's getting low. Then you want to say, I'm tired and worn out and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to check out and go home. That's what you want to say. So why? Well, we come to the problem of pain. Pain is an everyday thing. It's happening all the time. It happens everywhere you go. But real quick, we got a couple comments from the audience. And Olivia Lee Hastings says, this is so good tonight. I need to hear exactly that. Well, hey, that makes me happy to hear that. I'm glad that you guys are taking away something good from this, and it's making sense to you. It's not just a bunch of gibberish. Because when I was writing it out originally, Olivia, it felt like gibberish, but I made sense of it. What I have to do, my own unique method, is taking an old philosopher and saying, okay, how can we use him today? How is he applicable today to make us better human beings and work better? And Jessica Shuey says, raspberry tea. Raspberry tea it is. That is the tea of choice for tonight. So, and good stuff. So yeah, that's the whole progression where I go with the philosophy is find out what the old guy said and how pertinent is it to today. Now, here's the thing. If you ever have to, for some reason, I will save you some time. If you ever have to read works like Plato's Apology or anything like that, they didn't have a way of, like we're doing right now, like video recording this or audio recording. So when they wrote a book, they would oftentimes write one sentence and then they would write the same sentence over and over with very small variations, with really small variations. But it seems like every time you read one sentence in the Apology, you're reading it 3 times. I mean, it gives you a headache, but you struggle through it and you see the message. Okay, so back to here. So the next point that Epictetus makes is there is a price for everything. How you assign value to everything is how hard you're going to work for it. Now you can say, yeah, the store is going to charge me $2 for milk. The car dealership, he's going to charge me 10 grand for a car, and whatever, But here's what he said. Here's where he's getting with this. If you set your mind to the fact that no, you're not going to pay $2 for that milk, you're going to pay $1.80. Whatever. You get the point. You're going to find your brain is going to kick into gear, and it's going to find another place that sells milk for $1.80 or somewhere closer. You're accepting. That's you accepting that offer. Same with the car. No, I don't want that car for $10,000. I want it for $9,000. So you do what you learn. Maybe you can't find that car for $9,000, but along the way, you begin to learn better bartering skills. So when we assign price to everything, that is also the price of our time every week to 2 weeks. What are we doing for that? What is the price of our time? Okay, whatever. So I'll just say, okay, so every week you make $600. So every 2 weeks, the price of your time is $1,200. If you're content with that, great, stick with it. But if you want more, and you're just so stern on that price being more, then you go out and you get another job, or you get another degree or certification, whatever, you get more experience. You do what you have to do to get your price where you want. You don't bargain on your price. You don't let it go down. What does this do? Inherently, it makes us become better at that field, or a better person, or maybe that's part of our life journey, because along that way of researching what we have to do to get more value out of our weeks, or for that car, or for that jug of milk, we come across someone doing something, maybe the same thing, and life goes on. So there's a lot of beautiful things, a lot of beautiful stories you could take away from creating that metaphor. Is you set the price for things. You don't let other people set the price. Your time is yours alone, and it's only going to be there for so long. So what do? Maybe you need to readjust your prices. I know I need to readjust mine after doing this show up today. I was like, you know what? My prices in life are off. I'm not where I want to be. So that's what I'm going to be on a mission to do. With that, he says also, stop looking at each day where we have the little things like my boss kept me late for work. I went to McDonald's and I got the wrong order of food, and I'm mad about it, or I'm distraught about it. He says, no, don't be angry. Don't assign an opinion to that. Why? Because those things you really could not control. Somebody else was manipulating the events in some way, shape, or form. And the reason why you cannot control it is because it wasn't of your opinion, your desire, your action, right? Okay, follow me with this. He says, when we learn to appreciate those things that interrupt our day, or may seem like a hardship, or may seem painful, when we learn to say those are good things, then what happens is we learn to stop seeing everything negatively. Or if we see things too negatively, we're not doing that anymore. He's saying that it's a challenge to do this daily, because when the elites would rule, and still the elites in power, what they do is they learn to see it like that. Their company took a hit. What do? Hopefully they don't get upset. They go back to the drawing board and go, where did I go wrong, and what should I learn from it? You were in line at McDonald's. They got your order wrong. Well, maybe if you're courteous to that person, they were having a really bad day and you just made their day. Well, my boss needed me to work late. Well, maybe since you worked late, you got extra work done, and tomorrow you'll have some free time, more free time, and you can spend it with your friends or family. That's the attitude. Now, I know every situation isn't like this. It's not going to be. And with that, I know even myself, I struggle with that. We all do, because we're human. But he says we have to try daily. We have to try this every day that we wake up, because that's how you pursue the righteous mindset. That is where you go to understand that all of a sudden, life doesn't look so painful when it happens to us. So when the bigger things come along, we've already adopted the small mindset, like an athlete in training, for example. So this athlete trains, he does the workouts and everything. He does it for a little bit each day, and when he gets to the big event, he's ready to go. So too, when you train your mind and your outlook to look at things to where they're not so bad, try to see the good in them. The reason is, so when the big thing hits, the big bad hits, you can see the good in it, and you're not going to live bad. So you're also not going to write checks to the future about regret. There's a guy who gave a talk on that, Mulholland. He did a beautiful story talking about his grandmother. And in the end, he basically was saying, she lived this life with regretting she didn't end up with somebody. And he says, when we put things off today because of an excuse, a bad mindset or whatever, when we put things off today, not doing them, we're basically writing a check to the future that says regret. And so we're not going to do it anymore. And I thought that was beautiful. He said, so do what you need to do today, and don't be putting it off to tomorrow. Don't create these excuses. But it all starts with that, just having that different mindset. Now, that was the other thing. He says, he gives 2 stories in that book, that collection of works that I won't mention anymore. Hercules, for example. He says with Hercules that what would Hercules have been if he would have just went through life and never had any of the trials that he had to go through? He never had to face the Hydra. He never had to go down to Hades. Everything Hercules did. Well, let's take away all that and let's just say Hercules lived. So what did he do then? Well, he lived with super strength. He was still part God, but he was never a champion. He was never what Hercules was that we remember him to be. So he still had those things, great, but he lived a comfortable life. And that's one of the things he's saying is, look at each day as a challenge and embrace it. It's making you, these little challenges every day are making you the champions each one of you are. The awesome people that you are. I love all you to death. And the other one he says is the story about the genie lamp, right? Epictetus goes on to say, I have this genie lamp. And one day a thief came along and he stole it. He says, I'm not angry at the thief for what has happened. However, I feel sad for the thief. And actually, I kind of mourn him. He says, because what happens then is that the thief, when he gets caught, his trust is gone. He's known as a thief. There's so much more that he has to face and live with for the rest of his life. And he says, all I lost was a lamp. So what does that do? Well, that story to me said, when we do have something happen against us, we need to stop and look, why did that thief take that lamp? Maybe he needed it more than I do. I mean, I'd punch a guy in the face, but that's just different. I still got a lot to learn from philosophy too. I'm on this journey, but it's like, what do? You got to look at things a little. I hope it's just opening your mind a little bit. So the last one is this, and we're going to close out Epictetus and then move on to the girl stuff here. The gentleman, what are you doing in the club shit? So the last one is the playing card scenario, right? This isn't necessarily from him because playing cards weren't invented until 1000 AD. I think it was right before the Chinese or something. I don't know, look it up. If anybody can find an answer, please post it in the comments. I would love to hear it. The playing card story is you're dealt this hand of cards. And so is everyone else around the table. And so that can be as a, everyone in your life or in your immediate life or whatever it is. And so what happens is you're not responsible for the cards that are actually dealt to you. You're responsible for how you use those cards, in what way. So what does that tell you? Well, what if I just really get a bad hand? Well, then accept life sometimes that you really get a bad hand. If I get a really good hand, but then I lose to somebody with a bad hand, well, that's a lesson because it says I need to go back and study this game that I'm playing. I need to brush up. It was life telling me you're not as good as you think you are. So that's the playing card thing. And I think Epictetus, how you spell his name is Epictetus. Go look him up for a lot more info. Read his book. I think his book's called The Good Book of Life or something. Please feel free to chime in on this one and add value to this conversation with this part. So I thought this is interesting because in the latest philosophy class we're talking about something called common sense psychology. And common sense psychology is basically a vocabulary that's backed up by beliefs, right? So if I take a drink of this water, for example, immediately most of you, if not all, thought, well, he's drinking that because he is thirsty. So real quick, Kenny Bohr says, what the heck? This is my something third ID. Uh-oh. Can't pronounce cuss words on the show, but yes. Well, sometimes I can. Anyway, good to see you, Kenny. Common sense psychology is the way we interpret each other. It's an explanation to ourselves about ourselves based off of the beliefs we have, you know. So with that, not all communication is verbal. Actually, 90% of communication is nonverbal. And the more we stay secluded to technology, the more we lose the art of communication. When people say that, you know, as a society, we're losing the art of communication, we automatically think, well, maybe I need to take a public speaking class. That doesn't hurt. But the thing is, you're also losing the art of nonverbal communication. How our body displays a language. What are we trying to say to the other person when we're talking? This stuff blew my mind when I started to look into it. Like, I knew some of this from back in the day, but there's actually this whole, like, woman's code thing that they go off of. When a dude does this, it automatically cues some subconscious reaction, makes them go away. Well, number one, ladies, if you agree, please let me know. If not, let me hear it. Is eye contact. It is not just a matter of are you making eye contact, but how you're making eye contact and along those stuff. So if a guy comes up to you, his eyes are fidgety, he's racing back and forth and trying to talk to you, it's distracting. You need to look, be confident. There's also like how long you stare. You know, you don't want to be some creep staring right up at him and shit. There's the eye contact game when you're out at the bar or the club. You know, she looks at you, you look at her. Don't look to the ground. Sign of submission. Just look to the left or right. So eye contact, I mean, you can even take this to a business perspective. I was reading in the Harvard Review about this to get another angle to approach this tonight. Was that there was some big business deal, and the author of the Harvard Review of this article was talking about it. He was a part of it. And what happened was they had prepared all the material. It was for a multi-million-dollar hospital or something. And the team that prepared everything, that they thought it was a win because they had all the questions answered, they had all the data, they had all the research, everything was proposed. They thought they had a win. Well, 50% of the panel at the hospital that was going to accept the contract were women. And they knew this. But what they didn't know was their nonverbal communication skills. The number one was eye contact. So the men went in there, and as, you know, being men in the business sector like that, they went in there powerful and approached everything. They gave the data. They were firm about everything. But one thing came down to it was eye contact, and it was movement with how they had their arms and things like that. So it's not just in dating. This is also in the business world, how man and woman communicate. So so fidgeting eyes are bad. Looking down inside of submission. Also, by doing that with your eyes, I mean, just be natural. Just when you talk to someone, look them in the eyes. In some cultures, especially in Canada, I found that when you shake someone's hand, you need to be looking them in the eyes when you do that, even though it's not an American thing. To an extent it is. But by doing that, you know, if you don't, then they think you as the lesser on the food chain, so to speak. So that was a good lesson I learned up there, because I'm just like, yeah, how you doing? See ya. And, you know, the person I was with was like, no, you got to look them in the eyes when you do that shit. So same here. You know, if you're approaching a woman, you need to look to her and have respect, because it also shows respect. If not, it also makes you questionable. Is your trust questioned? So the next one is how your arms are. You know, do you, if you cross them or if you hold them behind your back or things like that, apparently this sends off the signal that you're on the defense, which I do kind of know that from, I had to do some interrogation stuff, is when people do cross their arms, they're going on the defensive right away. So that's something you do need to look out for. Also, real quick, interrogation thing is when you're being interrogated and there's a table, right? So cop comes in or whoever comes in. Now, first of all, always remember, interrogator only has so long to interrogate you. So delay. Second thing is they give you that cup of water, not just because, oh, are you thirsty? One of the things they look for is, are you taking that cup and are you putting it between you and them? If you put something between you and the person you're talking to, You're trying to hide something. That's interrogation. I don't know if that's chick lingo, but that's definitely interrogation stuff. So Olivia says, absolutely, looking at the eyes when shaking hands is as important as handshake to me. Cool. Good. Okay. Thank you for backing that up, Olivia. I appreciate that. So yeah, with keep things open. So if you have a problem fidgeting also with your hands, like a good trick I learned in the Army is in going up in front of these promotion boards. So when you're in the Army and you go in to get promoted from your lower ranks, from your private all the way through to your sergeant, you have to enter this room and it's all these high-ranking people. And then you sit at a chair in front of these high-ranking people and you have to answer questions about your knowledge and all this other stuff about your career field. Well, one of the things I tell you is put your hands flat on your knees while you're sitting there. Now, if you have a fidgeting problem and you're on a date or you're just talking to a girl, I'm not saying necessarily do that, but take your hands off the table, put them down to your side, do something. If you're standing, maybe put them in your pocket. That's if you have a fidgeting problem. The number one thing that I think scares women, and I would think this just from the primate brain, is if you try and move in too quickly into the personal bubble. Ladies, help me here. Touching. Now, touching is okay if you're talking and the girl does it like she touched you on the knee or maybe the arm or some shit. But if a guy goes in and he's getting too close too quick, or he's touching her, she ain't ready for it. That is more in her survival nature, from what I've read, that's her cue to get the hell out of there. Because the guy if the girl's not accepting the nonverbal cues and the guy thinks the next thing to touch, then she's like, okay, this guy's really trying to press in. I'm not comfortable with him. Get out of there. And I've sadly witnessed that with a few friends before. I'm like, ooh, dude, wrong move. Yes, Olivia says yes, personal space to stay out of my damn face. Okay, a question for you, Olivia. I mean, what's happened before? I want to hear a story. Has a guy ever just like, hey, how you doing, baby? Some stupid shit, and just got like real close to your face? Like, did you smack him? Did you knee him in the nuts or what? And of course, Chris Morrison just came out of the closet and said he's gay. Really big. Well, Chris, buddy, I love you. I mean, not in that way, but I am glad that you're getting that out. That's very important. Chris is a fellow, a brother and Army buddy of mine. So, and anyway, so yeah, getting too close, it's personal space. So Jessica says, personal bubble, touching is a no-no, makes ladies very uncomfortable a lot. And she seconds Olivia. Yeah, that's what I thought. So the game, if you guys are wondering, gentlemen, it's not really changed a lot over the years. Be a gentleman. Don't be a douche when you go out. Respect the space. What to do? Well, just so happens a psychologist came up with a very good approach to this. And I'm going to read, Olivia chimed in again. I'm going to read her comment, and I'm going to get into the answer of that before I ask the ladies on how to answer this. Olivia says, I have accidentally headbutted a significant other because it came up and touched me not knowing who you were. Personal space is huge. I will smack the ever-living shit out of someone if you get too close or get in my face. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope tonight, if anything, this video has told you, just as we do in the strip club, and we hear it all the time, touch the ladies, you hear the word hands, get the hands. Hands, Dan, his hands. So keep your hands off the girls. All right, so what do you do? Gentlemen, what do you do? Well, I'm gonna give you some tips. Hopefully this is good, because it was a psychologist who apparently figured this out through extensive study. And he says there's a technique called mirror and match. What is mirror and match? Well, if you sense, if you're interested in this girl, and you know, initially she's kind of questioning you, she doesn't know if it's good or not, a good technique is mirror and match. And this is something else that the gentleman who's writing the Harvard Business Review article about said that would have helped him, because he noticed the clientele that were women were getting more uncomfortable in the room, even though they were answering the questions. So this says a lot. So what do? Well, mirror and match all involves, are you talking too loud or soft? You have to match their tone. You check the breathing and how, you know, they're breathing faster, slower. Try and do what they're doing. Don't make it obvious. Subtle things like she brushes her hair, you just kind of wipe yours real quick. Shit like that. I have yet to use that stuff, but I think it'll be cool. I tell you what, Facebook, if I ever do use this, I will tell you about it. Hope I don't get the shit smacked out of me. All right. So basically it goes back to taking cues from the lady you're talking to, because that is also a sign of showing respect. You're interested in just not her, but you're interested in her as a person because you're paying attention to how she's reacting to you. Now, I've failed at this before, and it took me forever to learn these lessons, but I have found that it really does. The other thing, the last thing, the biggest key, and I will say this for everything we talked about tonight, about chasing, about following your beliefs, that absolute truth of who you are, and not letting others get in the way of what you're trying to do. From being a kidnapping victim to, you know, falling in an elevator, can't do much about that one, sorry, is confidence. Confidence is key. Now, there's a fine line between confidence and cocky. Okay, cocky is, you know everything, you don't give a shit, you're just gonna do it anyway. That's great. Being confident is just, you're sure about yourself, and it shows how you dress. It shows how you talk to people. It shows that ultimately you're understanding that even though you may be after that person, you think she's beautiful or whatever, if you can walk away and say, okay, that was part of life's experience, and brush it off and move on, then that's the reward. That is it. So that is it for tonight. And thank you all for hanging out, keeping me comfy by this fire. Hey, what's up, little man? I got a random guest out of nowhere. I don't know this kid, but anyway, I hope you guys wave hi to him. So I'm Anthony Farina, Fire Team Philosophy, and little kid said bye and just ran off. He was trying to pickpocket me. I know that stuff. See you guys here on next Thursday, and we will. I'm sure I'll have a whole slew of topics. Maybe we'll do some cool astronomy shit or whatever. Ladies, thank you tonight for your input, and if you're watching this on the rebroadcast, tell me what you would do when a guy approaches you. What's made you uncomfortable in the past, ladies, and what also has worked. I want to hear those smooth move stories. That's always good shit to go on about. So we will see you. We'll see you next week.